Things that were never talked about in my house when we were growing up. Sex. Never hide nor hair or mention of anything about the word sex or what it entailed, or I'm pretty sure us three kids were immaculate conceptions, considering my parents never speaking or uttering a word about it, except for the time that my mother used to actually creep upstairs if I was up in my room for any inordinate amount of time. I'm not really sure why she did it, but I kind of have a couple of thoughts why, maybe. The other thing was drugs. Never really talked about drugs. I didn't know what drugs were. Never heard of them. We didn't have the internet. What's the internet? Never heard of anybody doing anything wrong, until I went out with probably, I don't know if he was my first boyfriend, but I had a couple of dates with him. Billy Webb, tennis expert from high school, okay? And we went out to a dance, and afterwards we drove to a clandestine area, and he pulled out, I thought it was a cigarette, and he goes, "Have you ever tried this?" And I was like, yes, I have. I didn't know what the hell it was. I did think it was a cigarette maybe, and so I took it from him, and I'd never even tried a cigarette before. And he goes, "Okay, you're gonna suck on it, and you're gonna, and hold it. Okay. And that was my first experience with pot. Okay, still didn't know what it was until I went home, and I don't even remember how I found out what it was, but I must have had an inkling. I was very naive, okay? My parents never really talked about drinking. We didn't have to. We knew about drinking. We had a major drinking problem in our home, and it was, growing up was very difficult, but nobody ever really addressed it and said, "Don't ever do that. Don't, no matter what." No, because they probably didn't expect us to. But let me tell you something. If you're a kid or a teenager, especially a teenager, and you go out and you're around anything with any kind of stuff that's different, like drinking, you will probably try it. Or your kid will try it. As much as you hover or helicopter over them, they're most likely going to at least try it. And I remember trying slow gin. They were passing around a bottle of slow gin, and we were all getting drunk. Didn't take much, because we hadn't drank that much before, on slow gin, okay? And that was the other one thing that we didn't talk about. And then there was another thing that we didn't really talk about, and that was didn't really talk about the smoking, and had that in our house too, big time. My father smoked a lot. I mean, he loved cigars, pipes, especially pipes. He loved pipes. And it was so smoke-filled, our living room most of the time, where he sat in his recliner. It was like a smoking car on Amtrak. I kid you not. Every day. And we didn't think anything of it. Because the ad said there was a doctor who had a stethoscope around his neck saying that I smoke Marlboro or something to that effect. So if a doctor's telling you they smoke too, it's okay. And don't think that I didn't try that either, because I did. And I'll get back to the marijuana later, but the smoking of the cigarettes, I did on occasion, even when I went up to New York and I was much older. I remember also going abroad to, Japan and beautiful discotheque or two, and I would sit there with those lovely Moore cigarettes, the long, skinny, brown cigarettes called Moore. I thought it was pussy galore. Okay, and then I'd get up and I'd dance, I was so cool. And the only thing that ever stopped me or deterred my wanting to smoke some more permanently was my mother. And she would come in my room and smell the smoke, and she would berate me. And the stare. The stare. You didn't want the stare from my mother, because she could bend metal with the stare. Okay, and she would scream at me, "You don't know what you're doing! Are you crazy? You're And I'm going to be honest with you. That's one of the biggest things I appreciate my mother ever doing. There's a lot of stuff that I don't. We'll get to that another time. It's a list, a long list. But that was one of the only things, and don't think I still didn't go out on occasion and still smoke. Even when I was in New York, I'd occasionally do it, but I never picked it up permanently, and I thank God for that. Because I have friends who have died from smoking. Just keep that in mind. Although we'll go back to the smoking pot, I did love to smoke pot. At a certain point, I was spending a lot of my time out in the parking lot of my high school smoking pot. I know when I walked into one of my classes, I probably reeked of it. What was that guy, the kid from Peanuts with the blanket, and there was fumes all around him? I probably looked like that and smelled like that, okay? But I don't do it anymore, and I've cleaned up my act. It's been a long time. But anyway, I'm grateful for that, my mother telling me about the smoking. And the other last thing is my parents never told me about when you go to the drive-in, that box. This is just one of the other things. I'm just thinking of it because when I went out with Billy Webb, we went to a drive-in, I think on our second date, and he goes, "Oh, can you just grab that box?" And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like holding the box. I didn't know where to put it. And I go, "Oh, you just put it on the window." And I felt like a total idiot, and it was humiliating. And thank God he, probably had been smoking a little pot and didn't think twice about it. So there's that. But anyway, I didn't know where to put the box. And finally I did when he told me. And so that's my story. Those are my things that my parents never really told me. I'm sure there are others. There's a lot of stuff my mother warned me about. We'll get to that another time. But, what was your growing up like in your house? Were you told a lot? I discovered a lot on my own, though. It's probably a good thing my parents never talked about sex, because I didn't have any indoctrination on what it was about or anything, and so that was good. I could decide for myself. That was a good thing. So sometimes it's better not to give any opinions about stuff like that. Let your kids, when they're old enough, explore. And that's my story, and I'm not a doctor, but I probably played one in a TV commercial once, so there's that. Thanks for joining.